Hello and welcome to Restoration DIY. In this episode I'll be making an epoxy resin and applewood bowl. This is a first for me, using a log cut in half, then using a bandsaw to cut a circular form, then casting it in resin. The piece of wood I'm using has a hole straight through the centre. I will be using the solid half for this project. Marking out the centre, I drilled a hole which I used to screw to a basic jig. This would enable me to rotate the wood through the bandsaw blade, giving me a more or less perfect circular blank to cast in the resin. This is my first time doing this kind of cut, and it took some doing, but I got a good blank which turned out to be a bit big, so I cut the bottom off it. The offcut will make a nice blank for an upcoming project. Before mixing any resin, I waxed the casting bucket. It makes getting the cured resin out so much easier, and with that done, I added the blank and mixed the first batch. Purple was my colour of choice, and to enhance it, I added some purple alcohol dye as well as the purple mica powder. This was then thoroughly mixed for a further 2 minutes. I fully expected the timber to float in the resin, so I used hot melt glue to fix a waste block to the top of the blank, which I'll be able to place some weight on top of to hold everything in place. And with that done, I poured the first of 3 batches of resin into the bucket. As you can see, the timber is already floating, so after I added a third batch, I placed some weight on top and put the whole thing in the pressure pot. I added some more weight just to be sure, screwed the lid tightly shut and added 50 to 55 psi, and with that done, I left it overnight to cure. It's now a couple of days later, and off camera I added another 2 batches of epoxy resin so the timber blank was covered. I removed the blank from the casting bucket, chiselled away the waste block to leave a level surface, marked the centre and drilled an 8mm hole for the woodworm screw. And with the blank safely mounted in the lathe, it was time for some turning. At the time of making this video, my new Easy Wood Tools full-size finisher still hasn't arrived. So once again, the mid-size finisher, complete with negative rate cutter, took centre stage. For this project I had turned the carbide cutting head a quarter of a turn to get to a fresh cutting edge, and straight away the difference was very noticeable. It peeled away streams of resin, getting the top layers of the blank removed very quickly. As with my previous resin bowls, this would have a pedestal, and I intended to leave it quite wide to show the contrast between the resin and the applewood. I haven't turned apple before, so I was unsure what to expect. It did suffer with a bit of tear out, but I was able to deal with that later on. New tool time. This is a 3/8 bowl gouge with a fingernail grind from Simon Hope. I decided to give it a try. I used it to shear scrape and to do push cuts, and it was very effective at removing material. I will be on the lookout for the 1/2 inch version. I really liked how this performed. I had to remove quite a lot of material from the sides to expose the applewood. This gave me a good opportunity to really enhance the base. So using the carbide cutter, I created a deep cutaway which I gently blended into the upper section. At the beginning of this clip, if you look closely, you can see I'm rotating the cutter at a 45-degree angle. I did this to try and divert the streams of resin away from the camera lens, which worked, but it didn't completely cure the problem. Whilst filming this and other resin projects, I lose a lot of footage just because the lens is covered in resin. After some fine tuning with a carbide cutter, I sanded the outside from 80 to 3000 grit and moved on to forming the mortise in the base. Another new tool time. This is a dovetail cutter made by Crown, mainly designed for cutting mortises, and this is its first outing. I gently offered it up to the base and it bit, so much so that without the tailstock support it knocked the workpiece off centre, which for a start I didn't notice. After flattening the base, I had to cut the mortise a bit deeper. Then with a bit of fine tuning to get everything just so, I sanded from 80 to 3000 grit. Whilst doing this, I noticed what appeared to be a crack, which I filled with super glue, and then finished sanding it all ready for the finish. Sanding finished, I wiped down with denatured alcohol, quickly followed by a liberal coating of sanding sealer, which I denibbed with a non-abrasive Scotch pad. Yorkshire grit abrasive paste was up next. 2 coats. I've just started to use this on my epoxy projects, and I think it gives good results, but just make sure if you use it to clean it all off before the next stage. Next up, Yorkshire grit fine abrasive paste. 2 coats of this cleaned away until the paper towel is not picking any more up. This really gets the resin surface nice and shiny. It's the Novus Fine Scratch Remover, polished off to a blemish-free surface. This is followed by the Novus Acrylic Clean and Shine. The outside is finished, and I think the applewood looks really great against the purple resin. So with that, next it's the hollowing out of the inside. And I've not a lot to say about that, so sit back and enjoy the music.
As a young girl, the fields were mine. We played hide and seek for hours, raised our shadows among the pines. So offshore, playful and free, without a care in the world. I was one rich little girl, daydreamer, kidnap me, take me back, all the way back to them days, running around in a gown barefoot. No mistake ever kept me late. We spent summers catching fireflies and winters on our skates. One big smile across my face. We used to dance our way to church on Sundays. Mama set the pace. Daydreamer, kidnap me. Take me back, all the way back to them days. Running around in a gown and a crown, barefoot.
And that's the hollowing out done. I sanded from 80 to 3000 grit, cleaned down with denatured alcohol, applied 2 coats of sanding sealer, and I denibbed with my usual non-abrasive Scotch pad. As before, I then applied 2 coats of Yorkshire Grit abrasive paste to remove the heavier scratches left by the sanding. This also has a blend of waxes and oils to add finish to the wood. Yorkshire Grit fine abrasive paste. I'm using this just to polish the acrylic, though inevitably it does get onto the wood, but it comes off okay. And finally, the 2 Novus products. First the fine scratch remover, then the plastic cleaner and shine. Well, that's it, another project finished, and I really do like this one. The contrast between the Applewood and the purple resin just works. I particularly like how the resin has flowed into the cracks and voids. Close up it looks great, and the finish I got is flawless. I hope you like this one. I'm enjoying doing them. If I could ask you to subscribe, leave a comment and hit that like button, it'll all help to grow the channel. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye for now.